Welcome back. Shifting focus to the big meeting between US and China. US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a summit in San Francisco on the 16th of November in an attempt to repair the strained relationship between both nations. This was the first face-to-face meeting in a year and Xi Jinping's first visit to the US in 6 years. Both leaders said this meeting was among the most constructive and productive talks they have had. Let me now go across to Victor Gao, somebody who has worked very closely with the Chinese government and works with the Chinese think tank as well. Mr. Gao, let me begin by asking you, the Chinese government described the 4-hour meeting as quite productive. And they even went on to say that the San Francisco agreements, if in a way implemented, could be a new era in US-China ties. But do you think what President Biden said at the end of his press conference when asked whether he still would call President Xi Jinping a dictator, and he replied to that saying, in a way, I would, because he's the leader of a communist country. Do you think that somehow impacts whatever had been achieved in those 4 hours of negotiations and talks?
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I would say the summit meeting in San Francisco is truly a new turning point in China-US relations. The two countries now have a new page to write upon for whatever that they may do in the coming weeks, months, and probably a couple of years. And there may be a lot of heavy lifting to be done in the future. And the goal is to stabilize China-US relations, to prevent it from further deteriorating, and to see whether major milestones can be crossed. So don't be surprised in the coming weeks and months if you hear more good news in the aftermath of the summit meeting in San Francisco. Now, the second question you asked, yes, it is truly very unfortunate. I personally would urge President Biden to accept some professional counseling in answering questions. Some of the questions are traps that you do not need to voluntarily and very eagerly jump into. And I think from the Chinese perspective, we just need to focus on the positive side rather than being distracted by the negative side. The Chinese government has already condemned the misuse of the word that Biden used to describe the Chinese leader, which is completely unacceptable. However, I think this is the time when China and the United States need to focus on the right thing, stabilize the relations, go forward to make sure that they have better relations, constructive of their own purposes, and generating more benefits for the Chinese people and the American people.
Right. Mr. Gao, very important statements from you, but I would like to ask you, there was a US attempt to set the guardrails in this relationship, to not let the relationship deteriorate beyond a certain point. From the Chinese point of view, what would be the red line in the relationship with the US, which China would definitely not like crossed?
I would say China and President Xi Jinping emphasized to President Biden and the US government very clearly in the San Francisco summit. That is, the Taiwan issue is the red line of the red line of the red line. It's the most sensitive issue between China and the United States, and China urged the United States to continue to apply the one China policy, treating Taiwan as part of China. The United States has been operating on that basis since January the 1st, 1979. I don't see any reason why the United States wants to reverse itself, and China will never allow any country, including the United States, to recognize both China on the one hand and Taiwan on the other hand, because China always demands the one China policy and does not allow any country to break away from the one China policy or to treat China and Taiwan as two separate countries. Therefore, I think the fact that President Biden reiterated the one China policy and declared that he and the United States will not accept Taiwan independence is the right talk at the right time. We just need to see whether the United States government will walk the right walk in the coming weeks and months.
Okay, Victor Gao, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the program and having your analysis all the way from Beijing. Moving